sun, I'll be the bride and black that's making you run. I feel alright and we'll feel alright, 'cause we'll work it out. Yeah, we'll work it out. I'll be doing this if you ever doubt, till the love runs out, till the love runs out. I'll be your ghost, your game, your stadium. I'll be your 50,000 clapping like one. I feel alright and I feel alright, 'cause I worked it out. Yeah, I worked it out. I'll be doing this if you ever doubt, till the love runs out, till the love runs out. I've got my mind made up and I can't let go. I'm killing every second till it saves my soul. I'll be running till the love runs out, till the love runs out. And we'll start a fire and we'll shut it down, till the love runs out, till the love.
All right, we're back as the love runs out. I'm Jerry McKee, and welcome to Prime Time. And it is 7 o'clock, and we're here live with David Seeley. He is a veteran and from the Navy. He's in the Navy. I know, and not McHale's Navy either. Met show years ago. David, how you doing tonight?
So,
Can-
what did you say?
I said, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Doing very well. Thank you. And you?
Hold on a
You're
second.
looking good.
Okay, hold on a second. What, Edna?
It's not out there on the lineup. It's not showing up.
It is. Okay. She's telling me something not showing up. Right, and happy Veterans Day.
Well, thank you.
And if no one can see your medals there, but you got some fancy medals going on, and you have been in the Navy, retired for 24 years now. You was in the Navy.
I was in the Navy for 24 years and retired in 1990.
1990. Let me ask you this. Were you drafted or was you enlisted?
I enlisted while I was still in high school.
All right. So you missed the draft. A lot of people don't even know what the draft is. Years ago, you had a lot of people that were drafted in and some that were enlisted. Now, what made you enlist? I mean, you're in high school, and did you go in on a buddy system or just decide to just enlist?
My grandfather, Fred Good, was in the Navy in World War I, and he was on the USS Jupiter. My father was a fire controlman on the USS Alabama battleship. Most of my uncles, James Good, Melvin Seeley, James Seeley, Walter Seeley, all the men in my family were in the military. And most of them were in the Navy.
So were they inspecting you when you was getting older? Says Navy.
I couldn't wait to get out of high school and become a sailor.
Now, how did you tell your family you was getting ready to do this?
Now, I'm sorry.
How did you?
I'm hard of hearing.
Okay. How did you tell your family that you were going to enlist? Was they surprised, or there's something?
No, I had to get their permission to enlist because I was 17 years old. And my mother went, and at the time that they had to sign the papers for me to enlist, and mother cried, and daddy giggled, and I took the oath, and I signed a blank check to the United States of America. I'm yours, United States Navy.
Well, when you went into the recruiting office, did they really pump up? You can see the world. I mean, I know.
No. They asked me what my expectations were, and I had to take a basic battery test to see what I was qualified to do. And then they told me that I could do just about anything I wanted to do. And so I said, "Oh, okay." So I went in as a basic seaman.
Uh,
I went after I got out of boot camp. I was a seaman recruit in boot camp, then a seaman apprentice, and then I made seaman, and then I got married, and I made third class.
well,
But
now,
I knew what I was going to do.
now I knew what why you chose the Navy, because if you would have chose any other branch of service, you'd have been disowned, right?
No, because my Uncle Arthur was a mountain ranger in World War II, Arthur
Oh,
Good. And so he was trying to push me a little bit toward the Army. And but I always wanted to be a sailor.
well, that's great. Now, when you went in to the military, uh, did it would did your people, did they tell you what to expect, or was it everything that you imagined when you joined, or was there some things that when you joined that was different, especially when you're into the basic training? Basic training is totally different now than it was when you went in, correct?
Yes, it was 14 above zero the day that I got off the airplane in Chicago to go to Great Lakes, Illinois. And it
Wow.
snowed 11 inches that night. And we finally got in the, after you go through the shock and awe thing where you step off the train there at Great Lakes in Illinois. The shock and awe thing, it broke you from sucking eggs. It you ran everywhere you went, just about, and then we finally, that first night after we got issued our sea bags and all that kind of stuff, and got into the barracks, and I met Chief Gunner's Mate Dangerfield. He was my company commander, and I don't think he could speak below 110 decibels. Uh, but that very first night, we finally, the first day at boot camp, we finally got in the bunk at 3 a.m. and Reveille was at 5:30.
Wow. Now, did they say, well, y'all don't have to march because it's so cold outside?
We did push-ups in the snow and ice. We ran and we ran on the ice and in the snow. We stood ice watches at night. Every 2 hours, they rotated us out chipping ice off of the sidewalks to be able to get to our classes.
So, so y'all didn't have y'all had to do push-ups in all the snow and the ice anyway, and at 14 below,
No, it was 14 above,
above, oh,
14
okay,
degrees.
14 above. I mean, gracious, that is cold. And well, I guess the exercise and the push-ups and all that warmed you up, right?
You didn't have time to think about it. It was all very fast paced.
Now, what is now? Did you spend a lot of time in the classroom, or kind of split up between both?
It's split up. It's split up. You spend a lot of time in water, standing in line.
Stand in line for the chow too, right? How was the food?
With at that time, the mess hall at Great Lakes, Illinois, was the largest mess hall in the world, and they fed thousands 3 times a day.
Wow.
And they had 5 lines going in, and you had people yelling at you the entire time, tighten it up, tighten it up, tighten it up. Yeah, it was fun.
No, no. How much time did you have to eat? Did you just have the leisure time, an hour or two, just to sit back and eat?
Not too much leisure time. Uh, by the time it was taps, you were ready to go to sleep if you weren't on watch.
Oh, yes. Especially the night watch, right?
Oh, yes.
Now, when you at night watch, they let you sleep in the next morning, didn't they?
No, no, you didn't. Nobody slept in.
I didn't think so. So, so, so the meals wasn't too bad for us to taste wise, or
I gained a lot of weight in boot camp.
oh, did you have time to taste it?
Yeah, you didn't have too much time to eat, and but in fact, my wife still tells me I need to break that habit, and we've been married for 57 years.
It's hard to break, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you barely get it chewed, and you're swallowing it.
Exactly, exactly. Can you remember a funny moment that happened in boot camp? Something that just sticks out now to you that you just reminisce back that, oh, that was just so funny. It could be in a prank or something that played on you or you played on your buddies or,
No, I can remember if you made any noise after taps, then there would be a night watch standing beside you, give me 20. And if you said anything at all, you had to give him 50 push ups.
oh, gracious. And I
Yeah.
guess when you're doing, you had to be quiet when you was doing those push-ups, right?
Oh, yes.
Ah.
No grunts.
Now, was you used to making your bed up? I know, teenagers, we usually run out of our beds. We don't make them up like that, but you really had to go through some discipline that really changed the way that you leisurely lived at home versus there, correct?
Actually, I got to sleep more in boot camp than I did at home. I didn't have to milk any cows. I did, and I normal reveille was at 6 o'clock. Yeah, after you get past the shock and awe part of boot camp, and it was it was not really that bad. It's not like the Marines had to go through. Their boot camp is totally different than the Navy boot camp. And when I went to San Antonio to see my grandson graduate from basic training there in the Air Force, my Lord, it was like he was living in the Holiday Inn.
A little bit of change there, wasn't it?
Oh, big change, big change.
Uh, Now, when you in boot camp, did they take you on the ship, do some
No,
training, or was that came afterwards?
that came afterwards. That came afterwards. I spent 2 weeks on a destroyer, uh, the USS Tweedy, out of Mayport, Florida. And that was my ship indoctrination, where we learned to stand fire watch and where we learned to stand quarterdeck watch uh, and messenger watches and learn more about standard operating procedures, inventorying the ammunition, and the 3-inch 50 ammunition and the 5-inch 54s and the 5-inch 38s, going down and pulling all that stuff out and then putting it back in. There was terrible ventilation in there. That was actually tougher physically than boot camp, because you were in a confined space, and when you're 6 feet tall and you're standing inside one of those magazines, passing those 3-inch 50 rounds and inventory and all the munitions down in the magazines below the main guns, uh, there's very little ventilation, and you sweat like crazy. I mean, you are soaking wet when you come out of there, and when you get up on the main deck, finally you got the breeze to get up there. Learning how to wake people up without getting a fist in your face, learning, waking up the next watch and that kind of thing. That all took place in that 2 weeks, and it was a very tough learning experience.
Now, do you know what you wanted to want your job in the Navy? Did you know ahead of time what you wanted to do?
I thought I did, but the Navy thought better. Uh, I had a great bunch of teachers at Rock Hill High School that were very, very good, especially one particular uh, math teacher named Mrs. Budden. She, her husband went to grammar school with my father at Hopewell School in the western part of York County in the first few years before they moved back to Lockhart. And she spent a lot of time with me and gave me a hunger for mathematics. Well, I ended up in the quartermaster rating, uh, navigating and updating charts, publications, and things like that. Uh, Writing the rough draft of the captain's night orders about where we were going, what time to change course, and things like that. And then the captain would he would edit and issue his night orders, and and we were probably the first ones in the quartermaster division, navigation division, to awaken the captain in case of an emergency.
So you're almost like Sirius is when we ask Sirius to our GPS, on our cars, except yours is more on paper and
Yeah, I understand that they don't even carry too many paper charts anymore because everything's on computer. I have a problem with that.
well, you know what? It's just like when we had the storm go through, when all the power went off and the towers were down, no one had phone connection like that. The young folks were in a panic because they didn't know what was going to happen. And we grew up with no cell phones and some of us, television, and when it came in, so we were kind of used to that. So see, you would be valuable if all the electronics went went out on the ship because you could read it.
Yeah, we I had I started out on surface craft on repairing salvage ships and towing vessels, and about a third of our crew were divers. In fact, that was the first place I broke my eardrums the first time.
Oh wow!
Excuse me.
Now
I'm sorry.
you were a certified diver also.
Well, I was certifiable, but I think it had more to do with the psychiatric ward. I was I was free diving the first time that I ruptured my eardrums, and I broke them at 64 feet free diving.
Wow. Yes. Now I've done some diving myself, and you got the mirrors will take some pressure underneath there if you don't know what you're doing. Uh,
It only stings for a minute, and then it equalizes, and you're okay. And you
right.
come up with your mask full of blood.
And hopefully no sharks around. But uh, did you like scuba diving?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Haven't been doing any of that since I retired. But I did enjoy it then, especially in the Caribbean and the Mediterranean, because the water was so clean, except in Naples Bay and a few other nasty places. But the water, you can see so much. And then my wife and I were stationed in with our children, went over to Hawaii for 3 years when I served on the admiral staff there, and I went diving almost every week, sometimes 2 and 3 times a week. And my diving buddy was he was a chief air traffic controlman, and he introduced me to a lot of spearfishing and collecting, and we ate good.
Well, you know, it seemed like mine over here like I froze or something. Oh well. Well, anyway, it just you can still hear me. And
Yeah.
I don't know why they froze like that. But anyway, the now and you enjoy scuba. Do you do it? Did you do anything when you got out of service? Any scuba diving after you got out, or
No, I haven't done any of that since I got out, except when I take my grandchildren to the beach and don't do too much snorkeling or anything like that unless we go on a cruise or something. But I've got had it kind of tough with my knees and back these last few years.
well, it takes a lot of
You
people don't
use all your muscles.
right, and it's very difficult. Now, does uh, when you first got your orders to go into where was the first place you went when you got your orders to go deployed?
Hmm. The Virginia Capes in Norfolk, Virginia. The Virginia Capes is an operating area where the Navy does exercises.
Uh-huh.
And the ship I was on at that time was an auxiliary fleet tug. And I was on that ship for 2 years with some fantastic men that really taught me a lot. And I learned how to be a coxswain there. And I got my basic navigation training there. It was a wonderful experience. But we went into Virginia operating areas where we towed targets for ships to practice gunnery. And we also uh, pulled ships that had run aground, we pulled them off if they ran aground. You've heard of the LSTs. My brother was on an LST out of in the Western Pacific, and he was home ported out of Japan, but they spent a lot of time in Vietnam area in the war zone down there supporting. But it's a landing ship that is capable of taking tanks. They pull up on the beach and they drop that ramp down. Of
Hmm.
course, it's changed a little bit now with the newer model LSTs, but they drop that ramp down and they drive those tanks out into the water uh, shallow enough. And sometimes they don't have the horsepower to back themselves off of the beach. So our job was to hook up to those landing craft and pull them off of the beach into navigable waters. And if they got grounded to where they couldn't get off, then we were prepared to rig with a lot of mathematics and We pulled them off by laying some really heavy, what they call eels anchors out in the bay, and then we winched them off of the beach.
Now, did while you was on the ship, now was a lot of these big guns that you see on these ships? It was. Did you fire any of those, or
I was first loader on a 3-inch single fire 50.
makes a lot of noise, doesn't it?
A lot of noise. Yeah.
Now,
And the closest those headphones that you have on right there, we had sound powered phones, and I was a first loader, so I was the guy that shoved that projectile into the gun and locked it down, and then I stepped back, put my hands over my ears, and boom, and that the hot shellman is over there with gloves, and he grabs the hot shell when it's ejected, and I shove the next one in. That was my first battle station.
now,
Was the first
how
loader on a 3-inch 50.
how much do those shells weigh?
I don't remember, but I was 192 pounds with a 32-inch waist back then, so I could handle it.
Now, how hot do those shells get when after it's fired?
How hot?
Yes, would they actually burn your hands, or
Well, this little Puerto Rican guy that was a seaman, and he was the hot shellman. He left the United States Navy with a nice brand across his chest where he was burned through his shirt
wow?
when he missed a shell one time with the
I,
gloves.
I bet he only missed it one time.
That's the only time he ever missed. He was also the best 50 caliber machine gunner that we had on the boat.
Wow.
On ship, excuse me.
Yeah.
Ship.
Yeah. I was going
Submarines
to say,
and boats, that was a ship.
so, yes, someone going to call you on that one. uh, now, what was the first foreign port that you went on, and how was that culture to you? Because you're used to, like I said, you live in little small towns and little out in a little city, and you're milking cows and stuff, and now you're going into another country. What was the first country you went into, and tell me a little bit about that? And was it a culture shock for you, or uh, tell me a little bit about that?
Most beautiful place I ever been. I remember we pulled in there in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and we were down there for um, Operation Springboard, uh, which is, I guess that's been declassified now, but we operated with other NATO countries and war games and exercises down there. We towed targets, we shot targets, and but in Guantanamo Bay, when we first pulled in, that was the most beautiful sight that I had never seen anything like it. The clouds that were over the mountain range right there to the north of the bay, Guantanamo Bay, when we were pulling in, they were pink and pale blue,
Wow.
and the reflection off of the vegetation was just, it was like a rainbow of clouds as we were pulling in there. Absolutely beautiful.
I think you froze. There you go. There you come back.
But they had one of the culture shocks that I had is that was the first time that I had ever been to a place where they had an enlisted men's club where you went in and you could have a meal and uh, for all the guys that were there, they had a special kind of beer that only had like 2 or 5% alcohol or something like that.
Right.
Anyway, those crazy sailors have been at sea for a long time, and they got in, and they would tend to get a little overzealous when it came to exercising their freedom to dabble into ungodly things. So they had barbed wire around the palm trees all around the enlisted men's club there. And I asked the shore patrol when I went in there, I said, what is the barbed wire for? To keep them stupid sailors from climbing those palm trees when they come out of this club.
Why would they want to
That
climb?
was a culture shock for this old Presbyterian boy from Lockhart.
No, why would they want to climb a palm tree to get a coconut? Was it
Because
had
they're
coconut?
crazy. Let's do it. We've been at sea for 90 days or something like that. So let's do something totally irrational and stupid and see if we can impress each other.
Now, did you get to go into town in Cuba, or did you have to
No,
stay?
no,
Okay.
we were escorted everywhere we went.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you got to see some cool cars. You know,
We saw some old 48 Nash was one of the cars that I saw when I was there that I was very impressed with. And it was a 1954 Skipper. Have you ever heard of it?
never heard of it. No.
Well, that was a very unique car. It was one of the first ones in the United States with tail fins. They keep them alive down there.
Yeah. I understood it. Did I always did, I always really wanted to go to Cuba to see, uh, just to see, the culture and stuff. I've been to some of the others like Puerto Rican and things like that. Did you get to taste any of the local food that they had
Oh,
there?
absolutely, absolutely, and I loved everything. I am a lover of food, that was one of the things I did in every place I've ever been in Europe, in the Mediterranean. Hawaii is tasting new things. In Jamaica, my favorite food was jerk chicken.
Oh, okay.
Oh man, that is good.
Yeah, I've been to Jamaica twice. Uh, First time I didn't have really that great experience. We went on of course, on a ship there and on a cruise, and but the second time, when they told me, he says, "No, you got to stay on this beaten path here. You can't go on it here," and I didn't listen, and I wandered. And I tell you what, the people were so nice that I ran into. And they took me through their home. I didn't even know I was going through their home, so they took me through it, and this woman was making pottery in the back, and I really enjoyed that trip because I got to go off the beaten path of the tourism and what they told you not to do. But I said, well, God, take care of me, and He did, and really got to really enjoy that part of it.
Well, one of my granddaughters married a Jamaican, and he is the most precious grandson that I can claim.
All right.
He treats my granddaughter like a queen, and they've got two beautiful children, and they vacation there
Hmm.
in Jamaica. Sometimes a couple of times a year. Of course, that's where he was born and raised, and he's a very very fine gentleman,
Oh,
and
well,
they come down from Charlotte to attend church with us occasionally. We enjoy having them.
well, just think going on a vacation like that to another country, and you got your own personal tour guide, that knows all the places and all the good foods, and
Well, I'm going to tell you, the next time you go to Jamaica, don't rent a car, take a taxi. That is better than the most crazy ride you'll ever do at Carowinds.
well, we did take a van, I guess a tour van, and it was kind of, he drove good.
Well, I've been to Ocho Rios in Kingston, and it was just every place I've been down there. Most of the time, I got elected to be shore patrol after I made second class. So I basically had to go out and police everybody else.
Oh, so you had to be good.
I had to be good, and I had always tried to make sure that I was with. We had a first class bosun's mate on that particular ship by the name of John Cates. And John was 6'6" and weighed 270 pounds. And I always liked to stand shore patrol with that crazy bosun's mate. Step back, Seeley. I got this. You go ahead.
Now, out of all your, how many places did you get to visit? How many countries did you get to visit?
Oh, Lord. Um, well, I was in the hospital in Athens, Greece with pneumonia. And I love Greece and I love Greek food. And I loved Alephsus and Turkey. I enjoyed Turkey when we were there. Oh, Italy, magnificent, most wonderful, especially northern Italy. I love Livorno, Italy. Oh, they make calamari there that will put what we eat here on this side of the pond to shame.
Oh, that's,
La Maddalena, Sardinia. One of my favorite things there was the linguine with white clam sauce. Oh, and the bread, you could hollow it out and use it for shoes. But
oh.
that was some hard bread, but I loved it. France was a little bit different. It was a little bit different culture, especially in southern France. And Americans can be really crude, and they need to be educated before they make a fool out of themselves and embarrass their country when they go to these foreign places. And learn the culture, read, and understand the culture of where you're going, and don't embarrass our country when you go there.
Well, that makes good sense because you really, before you go in, you need to do a little research. Even here in the United States, before we go somewhere new, especially, we'll pull up on the internet, we'll read about it to see, well, that looks like it's going to be fun. So it's the same thing like going abroad that you need to find out, like you said, the culture. Instead of you getting that culture shock, you'll be acclimated to it.
Well, in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands, one of the young men that was on the ship with me at that time, um, our submarine was anchored, and they let some of us off to give us a break because we'd been at sea for months. And one of the young men that went ashore with me that day, and another chief petty officer went with me as well. And we went down on the beach and we swam a little bit. And we found out that if you put your billfold under your blanket where you're sitting out there on the beach, that when you come back, it will be empty. Somebody will take advantage of that opportunity to get a little cash. And then later on, when we got dressed and we went into town, we were walking in town. I looked behind me, and the young man that was with me had taken his shirt off, and this lady comes up and says, "You put that shirt back on. You put that shirt back on." And I turned around and I said, "Why did you take your shirt off?" He said, "It was hot." I said, don't you know that's illegal? That's inappropriate here. You cannot walk around the streets in St. Thomas, the Virgin Islands, with uncovered body. You have to be
Present.
respectful.
Right.
They have a strong Anglican culture there,
Ah, okay.
and they're very modest.
Now, what is the, I'd say, not the best place you ever been?
Not the best place I've ever been.
Right. I don't want to say horrible or anything like that, but the worst place that you were deployed at or in.
Hmm. 400 feet in the North Atlantic under the ice.
Well, that wouldn't be a good place.
Yeah, I'm a 7-time blue nose above the Arctic Circle, and that's not a good place to spend Christmas. I spent 5 Christmases in a row deployed away from my 4 children and my wife. Um, I think about that a lot. I missed a lot of Christmases. I lost a lot of holidays, a lot of birthdays.
How did you communicate back home to your family? What was the communication then?
Um, when I was on surface ship for those 4 years, it was writing letters, and the mail came in by helicopter occasionally. On submarines, there was no communication.
And how long did you
We,
stay
we,
on
I
the?
would get a family gram from my wife, a teletype, and it was all censored. And if there was anything in that family gram, I forget how many words we could get in a note, a family gram, but they couldn't say anything that would cause us to be depressed. I mean, after you've been submerged for 2 weeks, you're breathing twice the amount of carbon dioxide that you and I are breathing right now. Even though we have the atmosphere control equipment and everything on board, the CO2 scrubbers and the hydrogen burners and all that kind of stuff, we had a very sophisticated system, but it could never duplicate what you and I are breathing right now. And you've been submerged for 2 weeks, you'll be breathing twice the amount of CO2 that you and I are breathing right now. And you kept a dull headache from that CO2 saturation. Um, it was tough.
Wow, that had to be tough. Just being housed up in there to me would be rough because you're in this meadow underneath the ocean, and if you put your mind around that, I guess it would really give you a headache.
You're honestly, you stay so busy, you never get more than 4 to 5 hours sleep at any one time normally, unless you're in port, and you're rarely in port on submarines. And you you get in a routine. You work on an 18-hour day. You have 6 hours of work, 6 hours to work on your qualifications, to get some sleep, to study, to read, whatever you do. That's your free time, sort of. Unless you're a chief petty officer and you keep getting called up to the control room to check this or check that, or awaken to take care of something the captain wants. And then that last 6 hours out of that 18-hour rotation, you're on watch. And my watch on my last ship was I was the diving officer. And I sat in a chair and I had a plane, 2 plainsmen, one controlled, the after planes that controlled the pitch of the ship up and down. The other one controlled the course and the depth. And then I had the chief of the watch over here, and he kept me informed, and I had to scan all of that stuff. Every 10 seconds, I had to scan all the things on the ship's control panel to make sure, and I could feel it if something changed. If I was asleep in my bunk and the RPMs changed on the shaft that drives the ship forward, if they changed at all, it would wake me up and I would go to the control room to make sure everything is done like it's supposed to be.
Wow. So you had it after you did it a while. You just had that built-in sensor.
I still have a hard time sleeping past 4:30 in the morning, and I've been retired 34 years.
Hard to break those habits.
It is. It is. So I take the early morning as the time I write my devotion, that I have my quiet time, that I have my prayers.
Now, do you wake anybody up when you get up at 4:30 in the morning? Do,
Say again?
do you wake anyone up when you get up at 4:30 in the morning? Or are you very quiet?
I try to be very quiet. I usually don't put my hearing aids in until Wiley gets up and my son gets up and the dog gets up. But I try not to cook until at least one of them is up. But I really enjoy that quiet time with just me and God.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now, is there someone that you served with that you remember fondly?
Oh, a lot of them.
Who's the
I
main?
pulled I pulled up I pulled up a picture just the other day of a man named Gleason Eads. He was from Ewing, Virginia, and he could play a banjo. He was very good. And that John J. Cummings was the chief petty officer in our division on that particular ship, and he was the chief quartermaster. And then Matt James Carroll McMillan Jr. He was a QM3. He was in my division. And then I had a young man named Tom Check. He was just a prince of a man and a good friend. Cecil Combs. Cecil Combs was a radarman. We only have one radarman, and he was it. And he was just a prince of a man. And there's so many. Martin Luther Tinsley, and he and I are Marty and I are the only ones left living
Wow.
of my close friends that I served with.
You in contact with him a lot, or?
Yes, regularly. And Cecil Combs is still living. He wasn't in my division, but he was a close friend. He's still living in Kansas, and we talk back and forth on through. I send him devotions, and he comments on them occasionally. Facebook, I've reconnected with a lot of my shipmates on Facebook.
That's one great thing about Facebook. It's got some negatives, but the good positive things is we got to be reconnected with childhood friends, uh,
Yeah,
furry friends, and even new friends. And some people
yes.
don't even know. And that to me is a good positive thing. Now, if it would just stay positive all the way across there, it would be a great tool. Would
It can be a great tool. The devil is the prince of the air, and he can get in there and he can get amongst good things and turn them to evil if we allow it. But we just have to be guarded. Recently, I upped my security on Facebook. And I'm getting more particular about who I accept as friends.
Right.
And I'm getting more particular about who I communicate with.
Hmm. Well, let me ask you this: what made you decide to retire from the service?
The Navy decided for me. I had fractured vertebrae in my back several years ago, and it never healed back quite right. And I still have a permanently damaged sciatic nerve in my right leg, and I had severe back problems, 5 herniated discs, and some other problems. And they disqualified me from submarine service, and they disqualified me from sea duty because of my uh, physical problems.
Right.
So I spent the last 7.5 years of my career writing curriculum, writing test questions.
Mm.
I developed several new courses, keeping up to date with all the electronics and computer changes that were going on at that time. We were just starting to use uh, HP 97, if you remember that monster. And, uh, and we were just, that was my first initiation into computers was, um, in fact, Microsoft had not even come out with Word then. When I was on Admiral staff, we did card punch,
Right.
and I was part of that transition to tape, and part of that transition to disc on the Admiral staff. So, and that's my wife had to teach me to type. I didn't take typing in school, so my wife taught me to type.
Well, me neither. But I tell you what, I got two fingers that make a chicken just to be proud of me.
Well, my wife was a good teacher. She
Uh,
taught me how to type.
yeah, my wife, she types very, very fast and accurate, and she gets on to me a lot about. I use a lot of apostrophes where they're not supposed to be at. She says they're not supposed to be there. So so one Christmas she gave me a whole box of apostrophes for Christmas. but
Let
but
me get back to the question you asked me. Ask it
okay.
again. Let's see if he can remember it.
Now, is this the one I just got through asking you about your friend?
Yeah, we started off with my friend, and I thank God for all of them, and so many of them are gone now. And what was the next question?
And that was about your retirement.
Oh, my retirement. The re-
Yes.
yeah, the Navy made that decision for me. I had just made Master Chief, and because I was on limited duty, I could have taken orders, and I was able to pass the physical fitness test because they allowed me to swim for a mile rather than to uh, do the running
Right.
for a mile. And I could pass it. But I was going to have to, I could either take a permanent medical retirement or I could take a set of orders to Gaeta, Italy as the Command Master Chief with Submarine Group 8. And I had a brand new grandbaby, two kids in high school and one in junior high school. And my wife says, it's time. And I had to
So,
agree
so,
with
so your commander in chief at home says it's time to retire.
I refer to her as my sergeant major.
Now we've got about 5 minutes, and tell me when you retired and finally come home, how did you uh, get used to getting into the civilian life?
I'm still not used to it. Uh, I really have a hard time with civilians.
Oh,
When you're accustomed to being department director for combat systems for the last 5 years of your military career, and you have 57 different courses of instructions that you oversee, and you have about 90 instructors, and you're accustomed to having a first class petty officer that had a donut and a cup of coffee sitting on my desk at 6 o'clock in the morning when I came in. And then you go to pastoring a church, and you cannot be in charge when you pastor a church.
correct.
Nobody gets paid to come to church. And, I thought all I had to do was mention something and it would be done. I
It's,
didn't,
it's not
but,
in civilian life.
pastor, my cousin's husband was also a missionary and a pastor down in Argentina. And he came back and he was director of missions over in the North Greenville Baptist Association. And I said, well, Randy, how's things going over there? Or have you been able to, as a director of missions? He said, David, it's like herding cats. I said, okay.
Well,
But I'm still not accustomed to it. My as it is with you, Jerry, the Bible is my rule and guide for everything, everything, everything.
yeah,
It's my standard operating procedure. This is what Jesus would do. This is what his disciples did. They gleaned from every word that came from his mouth,
yep,
and we have it available to us. All the things that we need are encompassed in 66 books.
yes, that's right.
Everything. Standard operating procedure. People do not need to treat. In the Navy, we had standard operating procedure, and you did not deviate because those procedures are to save lives and fulfill the mission that we're called to do. So it is with Christians today.
Yeah,
We have a standard operating procedure, and it's called the Holy Scriptures. We cannot deviate and lean into our own understanding or bend to the will of man that does not embrace the truth of God.
amen to that. We got about 1 minute, and what advice would you have to someone? I've seen some young men at ROTC, and that was wanting to sign up and take that step into the military. What advice would you have for them?
Pray about it and ask questions. Talk to your pastor. Talk to your father. Talk to a veteran, especially one that's in a DAV, Disabled American Veterans, or the American Legion. Get advice from people that have been there and done that, and let them guide you through the steps to enter the military.
That's some great advice. Well, David, time has went by so fast. Can you believe an hour's already done gone by? And I really appreciate you coming on. I was intrigued with your stories, and I know you got probably days and years of stories. But it's been a pleasure having you on. And like I said, the first time I met you face to face, your dad I've met face to face before, LV. And
Well, if you've seen your wife's brother, then you've seen me.
right, right. Uh, he's got a few different little facial features now, but that we tease him about. But he's a good man too. Well, you
Yeah,
have a great evening, and thank you for your service. And have a wonderful what's left of the Veterans Day. And God bless you in your ministry, and God bless you in your family, and your family be blessed.
the Lord bless you and keep you and give his angels charge over you and protect you from politicians.
Amen.
Have a good night.
You too. Goodbye.
Bye bye.